Hello, True Health Seeker, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Today I'm interviewing my hero, Dr. Joel Wallach. He is the reason why I no longer have type 2 diabetes, chronic adrenal fatigue, and polycystic ovarian syndrome and infertility, and why my husband and I naturally conceived our son after 6 years of trying. His approach to natural medicine and healing the body with the 90 essential nutrients is absolutely revolutionary, but also comes from years and years of research. I'm so excited for you to hear his information. Every time I hear him, I learn more and more, and I have been following him. He's been mentoring me since 2011, and learning from him it is such a trip because he regularly helps people reverse diseases, even to the point where they're on heart transplant lists, kidney transplant lists, they're on their deathbed. I've seen him help people who were told by their doctors that they just needed to go home and die, that there was nothing left for them. I've seen him reverse so many diseases and help people get back to 100% health. So I'm very excited for you to learn from him today. Now, if you'd like to, as you're listening, if you'd like to buy the supplements that he has developed and he recommends, please go to takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. You fill out the form, and a health coach that's trained in Dr. Wallach's protocols will help you pick out the right supplements for you based on your symptoms, your nutritional needs, and based on the Dr. Wallach protocol that would best suit you. The body responds so quickly when you fill in the nutrient deficiencies, when you fill in those gaps where your diet has been missing certain key minerals, especially trace minerals, because it's so hard to secure all of the 90 essential nutrients in a diet, no matter how healthy we eat. And that's something that Dr. Wallach addresses in today's interview. So go to takeyoursupplements.com and try Dr. Wallach's protocol. I have seen the most amazing results. In less than 30 days, people say they have better energy, more mental clarity, and better sleep. But beyond that, people's blood sugar stabilizes, their mood stabilizes, blood pressure stabilizes. I have seen people reverse conditions. I had a friend who had an essential tremor. His hands shook his entire life, and that went away within days. I had another friend who had skin tags over his whole body. The skin tags fell off. I have known several men reverse erectile dysfunction with his protocols. So he has his protocols for filling in the nutrient deficiencies, filling in those nutrient gaps in our diet, supporting every cell in the body with the 90 essential nutrients, and eliminating certain foods that harm the body so that we can optimize health at any age and at any weight. It's the whole program is actually designed based on body weight, so you're making sure you're getting the right supplements for you at the right dosage for what your body needs. I really look forward to hearing from you as you're on the protocol. If you'd like to share with me how it's going for you, you can email me, ashley@learntruehealth.com. You can also join the Facebook group and share with us there. There's already some listeners who have shared their incredible experiences by adding these supplements to their life. Now, you can't out-supplement a bad diet. You can't out-supplement unhealthy habits, right? We have to focus on a holistic way of life, meaning you have to look at every aspect of life. But we also can't exercise and eat healthy and only do those two things and expect optimal health, because if we have a nutrient deficiency, even in a healthy diet, our body is still missing something. So this is one of the key components to optimal health, is supplementing to make sure that we don't have nutrient deficiency. And we have to make sure that our supplements are high quality, that they're bioavailable, the body can absorb them and utilize them, and that they're plant-derived, that they're not chemically man-made. And that's all the things that takeyoursupplements.com provides. Awesome. Thank you so much for being a listener. I'm really excited for you to hear today's interview, especially because Dr. Wallach's my hero. I've been wanting to interview him for years, and our schedules aligned, and so it just became the perfect time for me to have him on the show, and I hope to have him on the show again in the future. I also recommend reading his books. They're amazing. Please check out his books. The links to his books will be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. Awesome. Have yourself an excellent rest of your day and enjoy today's interview. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 435. I am so excited to have Dr. Wallach on the show today. You have been my biggest hero in the holistic health space. Because of you, I no longer suffer from diabetes, chronic adrenal fatigue, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and infertility. Because of you, I was able to conceive naturally our son, who's healthy and he's 5 years old. And you're the one that got me so excited about health that I started my podcast 4 years ago. We have over 7 million downloads and over 430 interviews.
Well, thank you for the kind testimony.
What I'm excited about is that you're here today to share with all of my listeners that are wanting to seek true health. And you're here to share with them what I learned from you to end disease in my life. And I'm so excited that they're going to learn from you today how they can end disease and how they can reverse and prevent disease. So welcome to the show.
Well, again, thank you so very, very much, Ashley, and I appreciate your hospitality.
Dr. Wallach, I love your story. Can you tell us a little bit about your research that led you to discover the cause and cure for 900 diseases?
Well, to make a long story short, when I graduated high school, okay, I'm leaving out my personal stuff, which will take 15, 20 minutes. So when I graduated high school in 1958, I already knew that the medical system was in the wrong direction because I grew up on a farm. And we didn't have any of the diseases that in the farm animals that people had because we were giving supplements to animals that prevented and reversed those diseases. We didn't have any health insurance for them, so it was much more economical to prevent and reverse them with supplements than it was to wait until they got sick and then call the veterinarian and pay the veterinarian, go broke and sell your farm. So when I graduated high school in 1958, I went to agricultural school because I wanted to get a degree in agriculture. And halfway through that, I said, I'll try for veterinary medicine. So got into veterinary school. And I was working part-time because I had to work my way through, didn't have a lot of money, so I had to work my way through and was working part-time for the pathology department and realized there were so many things that were so simple, but people weren't being told the whole truth. And so in 1964, I graduated University of Missouri. I had my degree in agriculture. My major was in animal husbandry and nutrition. My minor was in field crops and soils. I had my veterinary degree at the time. And I was halfway through my degree in pathology, so I was going to Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, to finish my degree in pathology. Well, as a high school kid, I had worked with Marlin Perkins from the old Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom show because I was a farm kid and didn't mind throwing manure out of stalls of animals in the zoo and stuff like that. And he kind of followed me a little bit. And he wrote me a letter and said, look, Wallach, I need you to go to Africa for a couple of years and work on the White Rhino Conservation Project. When it's over, you come back. I can get you back into graduate school if that's what you want, or you can get a job in the zoo, whatever you want. Can't refuse Marlin Perkins from Mutual Omaha Wild Kingdom. So I went to Africa, and 2 years into it, I had caught 200 white rhino and shipped them back here. So if you see a white rhino in a wild animal park or a zoo, it's either one that I caught or offsprings of the ones that I caught. At the time, there was only 470 left of the southern race of white rhino south of the Zambezi River. Today, there's 25,000 because of the game parks we established and trained people and caught the animals up north and brought them and put them in the ranger parks and stuff like that. So very, very proud of that. So 2 years into that, I was prepared to stay in Africa forever, actually. I was having the time of my life living out in the bush, eating wild antelope and stuff like that and fish and just working on conservation projects. But I came back here at, again, Perkins' invitation. He says, look, Wallach, your work, when you were doing your pathology stuff, I got a $25 million grant using your kind of research papers, and I want you to come back and be the pathologist on this project. We got this $25 million grant. This is, April of 1967, and I don't know if it'll be 2 years or 5 years or 10 years or what, but I need you to be the pathologist. I want to find the diseases that are caused by pollution that zoo animals are sensitive to in the big cities and people who live around the zoos are sensitive to. So when the zoo animals start dying from the pollution, we know to evacuate the city. So I want you to do it. Can't refuse Marlin Perkins. So I came back April 1967 to be the pathologist on the project. Make a long story short, 10-year project. I did 20,000 autopsies. It was 17,000 some change of over 454 species zoo animals and 3,000 humans, 20 million chemistries. And I learned and published in a book, which was my thesis of this whole project, the thesis represents the 17,000 autopsies in these 454 species of animals. 8,000 human autopsies are in another book called Epigenetics. But anyway, to make a long story short, what I found out was none of the zoo animals died of pollution. None of the human beings living within a 10-mile radius of the zoos died of pollution. There were no genetically transmitted diseases, and there were no genetically transmitted birth defects. I mean, it was driving everybody crazy. And so that's how all this started. When that was over, I went to work at the Primate Center, at Yerkes Primate Center with NASA in Atlanta, Georgia, and worked at the medical school there as a pathologist at Grady Memorial Hospital and in Atlanta, Georgia, and ran into the first non-human case of cystic fibrosis, proved that it was not genetic, got it published, and they fired me because everybody knew cystic fibrosis was the disease that's a classic example of a genetically transmitted disease. And I said, well, I purposely saved tissue and blood and all kinds of stuff so you can do your own look yourself and see if your results match mine. No, you're fired. That's when I went back to school and became a naturopathic physician in Portland, Oregon, 1978. Was teaching for 7 years pathology and clinical medicine. Graduated in 1982 and been treating people nutritionally for something like 900 different diseases using nutrients for 72 years.
When you discovered that cystic fibrosis in the rhesus monkey was not genetically transferred, but it was caused by something else, what was it caused by, and why were you fired?
Okay. Well, first of all, I sent the tissues on the slide, the liver and the pancreas and the lungs, to experts in cystic fibrosis in the big children's hospitals around the world, 10 of them. And they all sent back a little note saying, this is a perfect example of cystic fibrosis. Thank you. I didn't tell them it was from a monkey, but I had it all on their letterhead. Okay. So I then put together my paper and brought it to the powers that be at Yerkes Primate Center and also at the medical school in Atlanta, Georgia. And they were so, which I say, involved with genetics. There still are medical doctors. Everything's a genetic disease, right? And so back then they didn't want to be embarrassed, and so they fired me. It was easier to fire me because I was just a veterinarian at the time. I wasn't a naturopathic physician yet, and so I was just a veterinarian. And so they fired me to save their faces, is what it amounted to. And then a couple of years later, I found the cause prevention cure of muscular dystrophy, gave that to Jerry Lewis, and he got so excited because I gave him 100 charts of kids that I had cured with muscular dystrophy, proved that it wasn't genetic, simple nutritional deficiency. He took it to the Muscular Dystrophy Association. They fired him and stopped the telethon. That's why I haven't heard anything about muscular dystrophy or cystic fibrosis since 1978. And then April 16, 2013, my most recent thing, April 16, 2013, a federal judge ruled, because we kept pushing the federal courts to put this nutrient in baby formula, because sudden death syndrome, it was a big lie. Only 2% of the babies that died of sudden death syndrome were in bed with their mothers when they died. 90% were not. None of them suffocated. When you redo the autopsy, you could tell they didn't suffocate. They died from what we call hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. And I have done 1,700 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 that died of that one in Qishan province, China. It's called Qishan disease. The deficiency of a single nutrient caused a sudden heart attack in these kids. And I did 1,700 autopsies in 6 weeks. And so I'm an expert in that. And so I knew that's what was causing, because 200 of them would have been diagnosed with sudden death syndrome here in the United States. Got it all written up, the usual process, and nobody wanted it. Nobody would publish it. And so I went to the federal courts and said, look, here's 1,700 autopsies proving what I'm saying. They couldn't resist the evidence of 1,700 autopsies, all the slides, all the blood. And so they ruled that every manufacturer of baby formula had to put this nutrient in the baby formulas. 3 months later, let me take that back. It was a year later. Okay, it was September 13, 2014, just about a year later. The Charlotte Observer, which is the big newspaper in Charlotte, North Carolina, kind of like the New York Times for New York, front page story. I mean, this was front page story, big bold letters like Third World War starting. They said, we don't know why, but sudden death syndrome has vanished in North Carolina.
Oh my
3 months
gosh.
later, the state of Missouri did the same thing in their headlines in their newspapers. 3 months later, every newspaper in America said, we don't know why, but the death rate from sudden death syndrome has dropped significantly by 85 to 95% in all states, because we put that one nutrient in the baby formula. You haven't heard any more about sudden death syndrome because it's gone. It was a deficiency of a single nutrient. So I'm the guy who figured out the cause, prevention, and cure of cystic fibrosis muscular dystrophy, and I'm the guy that figured out the cause and prevention of crib death.
Have you experienced pushback from the pharmaceutical industry? This is obviously going to affect their profits.
Well, see, what happens is every time I get interviewed, they come along and want to have their words and, say that I'm a quack and all this kind of stuff. And there's no proof. Well, I don't know, 1,700 autopsies published with all these slides and lab data and everything. That seems pretty much like hard proof to me. And when I was working at the Yerkes Primate Center for NASA, when I got confirmation that one monkey had the classic symptoms of cystic fibrosis, I got permission to do, most people don't know this, but I got permission to do biopsies of the liver and pancreas and lungs of the 34 other baby monkeys, in the same colony. All different mothers and fathers, not related in any way, shape, or form other than they were monkeys, and they all were positive for cystic fibrosis. So I knew it was an environmental thing. And it turned out that the gal who was in charge of that colony, she was a psychiatrist, and she was doing nutritional studies in that colony where all these 25 or 30 pairs of these monkeys, unrelated to each other, were having babies for her research. And she was giving them different nutrients, and she wasn't giving them the standard monkey pellets. So she was feeding them mixed grains and her idea what vitamins and minerals were. And so that's why they all got cystic fibrosis.
Because they had nutrient deficiency?
That's correct. It was just a simple nutritional deficiency, artificially created because they weren't given the monkey pellets. And of course, her husband was in charge of the facility, so he's the guy who fired me because he didn't want her embarrassed.
What in humans, in utero, what diseases are nutrient deficiencies? Like everyone knows that folic acid or folate causes neural tube defects.
Yes. Well, see, here's the deal. Now, there's some birth defects that are caused by measles in the embryo early on, right? Thalidomide, which was a prescription drug for morning sickness, would be given to women early in pregnancy, and that caused 10,000 American babies to be born without arms and legs. There's that, but there's no genetic defects anymore because there aren't any genetic defects. All other birth defects, and here's the experiment that proved it to most people. When I was working at the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, a pair of wild-caught Arctic foxes, they weren't related, from two different parts of the Arctic. They were put together as a pair in the Brookfield Zoo. When they got to be a little over a year of age, they went into season and they got pregnant and had 10 babies, and all 10 babies were born with cleft palates. And the keepers called me because I'm doing pathology up at the zoo hospital. He said, look, we've got 10 baby foxes with a genetic defect. And I said, uh-oh, to myself. Yeah, what is it? Oh, they all are born with cleft palate, and the mothers and fathers, we want you to give them the needle with a drug to kill them, because we can't have adults or babies in the zoo that have genetic defects. They can only be perfect in the zoo. I said, well, bring them up. Let me see them. So they brought me the babies, and I said, okay, look, we're not going to kill these babies because this is not a genetic defect. This is a simple nutritional deficiency during pregnancy. What did you feed the mother and father? Well, they're meat eaters, so we gave them horse meat. And I said, okay, did you give them any vitamins and minerals? No, they're meat eaters. We gave them horse meat. So that's why they got this cleft palate, because this is a defect of a single mineral, okay, which is not found in horse meat. If you give them the horse livers, it would have been okay, but not the horse meat, okay? And so what I want you to do is feed these babies with a puppy formula that's meant for orphan puppies. I want you to give the mother and father just dog food. And in 6 months' time, when these babies all come to be, they're going to come into heat and seasons and all that kind of stuff at 6 months of age. And so I want you to put one son with the mother and one daughter with the father, and the other brothers and sisters, match them up. So we're going to really do some super inbreeding here. And I want the mothers and fathers right now to start getting dog food. the babies are going to get this infant formula for, or milk replacer for puppies that are orphaned. And when they get to be 6 weeks of age, they're going to want solid food. Give them dog food. Well, a year later, they called me up and said, okay, Doc, we have, between all these things we put together here, we have 100 babies from these 2 foxes. Do any of them have cleft palate? Nope, they're all perfect. I said, well, I proved my point, didn't I? He said, well, yes, you did. So I said, I don't want any more of these animals out there being fed just horse meat. They got to get vitamins and minerals. If it's appropriate, wolves and coyotes and, foxes, they need, dog food. And then there's cat food for the small cats. And we'll figure out a diet and supplement program for the big cats, okay? And so that was published in scientific journals. It's a big story in the book, Rare Earth Bin Cures, and it's a big story in the book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie. It's a big story in several of my books with the pictures of many of these baby foxes with the cleft palates. And so, all along the way, I've been able to prove what I'm saying. And so now when I go on, like an interview someplace, the doctors will call up and make a big hoo-ha. Well, this guy's a quack and he can't prove what he's saying and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, how come his thesis is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure? They hang up, and they can't respond to that.
Now, you talked about curing Keishan's disease in China. Can you tell us the story of Keishan's disease and how you came to cure it?
Okay, well, Keishan disease is, again, a deficiency of a single mineral that causes this sudden hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease. 25,000 American kids die of that every year here under the age of 20. It's the sudden heart death that afflicts young athletes in their teens and early 20s. You hear about this all the time. This teenager, played football or played soccer, or played baseball or hockey or rugby, whatever it was, or basketball and drops dead. That's Keishan disease. Okay? It's not some mystery. Okay? And if they would be giving these kids my sports drink, which has 100 nutrients in it, including that one mineral, okay, and give them the 90 essential nutrients, guess what? None of these 25,000 kids would die anymore. But doctors, I'm the sports medicine doctor here, and we're going to give them one of these things that have complete nutrition. It's got 27 nutrients in it, and it doesn't have that nutrient in it. Well, it turns out that my wife, Dr. Milan, who's a medical doctor from China, well, I'm telling her about all these sudden heart deaths, and she says, well, that sounds like Keishan disease. I says, what's that? And so she got me all the English versions of publications of Keishan disease. Yeah, looking at the slides and everything. Yeah, this is it. So she and her family have still, even yet today, have a lot of power in China. This was published in scientific journals in 3 languages in 1990. I did the work in 1989, and it was published in 1990 in 3 scientific journals, 2 in Chinese, 1 in Mandarin, the other in Cantonese. The third one is in English. It's called the Journal of Trace Element Research. So if anybody wants to check it out and see if I'm lying, they can check it out. 1,700 autopsies has caused Keishan disease, a.k.a. hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease, is caused by, in fact, there was some famous athlete that just died here, and he was in his 20s. He just died a couple of days ago from a heart attack. Okay, so I don't know if he's a basketball player or soccer player or whatever. He just died due to deficiency of a single mineral. And people say, well, tell me what it is. Tell me what it is. I said, no, because you'll try and you can't run to Walgreens anymore because they're shutting down. But you run to someplace and try and buy it, and you'll give it to somebody and they'll die. They'll say, well, Wallach lied. No, because there are cofactors necessary for that one nutrient to work. Just like when people get osteoporosis, doctors say, oh, you have a calcium deficiency. Take some Tums. That's the doctor's way to deal with osteoporosis, is take Tums because it has some calcium carbonate in it. Well, let's see, what else does your bones need besides calcium? Vitamin D3, sulfur, magnesium, copper, phosphorus. Are you getting the picture?
Mm-hmm. You need the full complement
You
of
need
all
the
the
whole
cofactors.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why you have to appreciate, Ashley, there's only one prescription class of prescription drugs that cures anything, and that's antibiotics. Antibiotics will kill bacteria and some fungus, okay? But guess what? All other prescription drugs are purposely designed to treat symptoms. Oh, I had so much pain from my arthritis for 10 years. My doctor gave me the opioids. In 3 minutes' time, my pain was gone. I just love my doctor. And then 2 years later, sorry, Francine, your disease kept progressing here, even though you don't have any pain. Now it's time you have to have a double knee replacement. It's going to cost $50,000 per knee. It's a good thing you have insurance. And so the doctor is able to send his 2 kids to college.
But that mineral deficiency that led to the osteoporosis is affecting every soft tissue as well and all other organs and creating all
That's
kinds
correct.
of symptoms as well. Symptoms that doctors will write off as normal. Oh, you have sleep problems. Oh, you have restless legs. Oh, that's normal. Here, let me give you a drug for that.
That's correct. And they send their kid to college with the money.
But there are a lot of good MDs out there with really big hearts that really do want to help people. The problem is they're not trained in anything that you've discovered. That you discovered that these nutrient deficiencies are the cause of these diseases and that you've
That's
published
correct.
this. And I've seen you regularly reverse diseases and even to the point where you've saved people from amputation and saved people from being on the heart transplant list and kidney transplant list. You've reversed heart disease, kidney disease, you've reversed diabetes and saved people from
All of that.
amputation.
Actually, we do this all the time. We take people who've been a diabetic for 30 years and 30 days are not a diabetic. We take people who've been on kidney dialysis 6 days a week. They have not urinated in 10 years. And in 2 weeks' time, they're urinating, and in 6 weeks' time, they're off of dialysis. Because these are all simple nutritional deficiencies. We change their diet, we put them on the 90 essential nutrients with the secret sauces for their particular disease, and it all goes away. I have a new book out. It's on the 25 diseases of the skull. When you have osteoporosis of the skull, there's 25 different diseases that you would go to a neurologist for and have surgery to put implants in your middle ear. And, you'd have all kinds of eye surgeries and back surgeries and neck surgeries and arm surgeries, all kinds of stuff. In fact, osteoporosis of the skull causes atrial fibrillation. You ever heard of atrial fibrillation?
Yes.
It's a squeezing of the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve, which controls the rate and rhythm of the heart. You can also have degenerative disc disease, and the first 4 thoracic vertebrae squeeze the spinal nerves that control the rate and rhythm of the heart. So there's 2 possibilities. So I always treat for both of those when people have AFib. And I'm going to tell you about a congressman from Baltimore, Maryland, Elijah Cummings. You ever hear of him?
I have not.
Okay, he was a black congressman from Baltimore, Maryland for 20 years. Very famous guy. Okay, a leader in the black caucuses and everything else in the Congress. 20 years. He gets AFib. The cardiologists take him in, anesthetize him, cut him open, take a soldering iron, heat it up, and they were trying to kill the part of his heart muscle that was running away, setting off these regular heartbeats. And they killed him by doing what's called an ablation, trying to kill a part of his heart muscle that causes his heart to beat irregularly. If he'd have come to me, he'd still be alive because all I would do was fix the osteoporosis of the skull, take the pressure off that 10th cranial nerve. He wouldn't have had atrial fibrillation anymore.
You're the one that cured my husband's AFib. He was a candidate for a pacemaker. He was in acute AFib for the 3rd time. And you said put CM cream on his back. Go to see, obviously continue taking the supplements, the minerals, especially. Hang upside down in an inversion table and go see your chiropractor. And we followed your instructions to a T. We also did like ice packs on his back, and his AFib, his acute AFib went away. What we figured out was anytime he lifts heavy weights, it would compress his thoracic spine, and he'd develop AFib. And it's like clockwork.
Yeah, what happened was, as those vertebrae get closer together, compressing them, they smash the roots of those spinal nerves that control the rate and rhythm of the heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the cardiologist wanted to put him under and give him a pacemaker.
Yeah, well, believe me, they would have done an ablation before they put in the pacemaker, which means kill part of the heart muscle. What did the doctors say when he didn't have AFib anymore?
Oh, we didn't go back to them.
Well, that's why your husband's still alive. See, You're not only beautiful, you're smart.
Well, we listened to you because we've seen you help so many people, and we're just so grateful that we keep listening to you and learning from you.
Well, thank you for passing on the information.
Absolutely. It blows my mind. One client I had a few years ago, she came to me for weight loss. She goes, I'm 25 pounds overweight. I hate being overweight. I said, well, what happened? Tell me. She goes, well, my doctor, who's my boss, because I work at a clinic and I've worked there for 20 years. My doctor has me on these steroids for my adult onset asthma. And the asthma is so bad I have to be on all these steroids, and these steroids cause me to gain weight. And I said, wait a second, let's back up. Dr. Wallach says this, and this about asthma, right? We got her on the 90 essential nutrients with extra EFAs. 1 month later, she calls me up. She goes, my doctor took me off of all the meds. I don't have any more asthma, but I'm calling because I want to help my niece who has ADD, and my other family member who has this, my other family member who has that. And I said, wait a second. You are off all your meds. You've known your doctor for 20 years because he's also your boss. You're off all your meds, and in 1 month. And did he want to know why? Did he want to know how? And she said, nope. And that's happened over and over again. I've helped other people, like you helped me reverse my type 2 diabetes. I've helped other people do the same. And none of their doctors want to know how. They've had them on medicine for years, like metformin or insulin. And then they finally get off of it because they're healthy, and the doctors don't want to know. It's just, it's so outside their realm. It's so frustrating.
Well, see, it's not that simple. Well, see, it's a criminal act they're doing because they don't want to. If they know, if all my patients get the same result that you did, their income stream would stop. Their beautiful wife would divorce them. They'd be kicked. All their kids would get kicked out of school because they can't pay their tuition anymore, and their dog would eat them.
So they're just stuck in this mentality of their training. Luckily, there are doctors who are breaking free from that, who are becoming functional medicine practitioners, becoming naturopaths, and focusing on nutrition.
We're keeping our fingers crossed.
Yes,
Anyway,
absolutely.
that's why I started Youngevity, because I knew that by myself I would not be able to have a major impact on the world. That this was too much good for too many people. So we started a system, and the books and things and CDs and DVDs and so forth. When the audio cassette tapes first came out, my audio cassette tape, Dead Doctors Alive, was the first audio cassette tape to go viral.
It did. It did. I was sitting in the back seat of my mother's car when I was about 11 years old in 1991, and my mom popped it in. I think it was 11 or 12. And my mom popped it in the tape player of the car, and I listened to your lecture over and over again, and it completely changed my thinking. And my parents had me see a naturopath, and I didn't know what your name was, but I heard your lecture, and I heard how important all these different nutrients were. And then I found you again back in 2011, found you again. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the doctor I was listening to back when I was a kid that talked about the importance of nutrients. Now, I'm sure the questions come up in listeners' minds. Why can't I get all of my vitamins and minerals from food? I eat so healthy. I eat all kinds of fruits and vegetables, and I don't eat junk food. Why can't I get all my minerals from food? Why can't I get all my vitamins from food?
Okay, what if a mechanic were to say to you, don't waste your money by putting oil in your car, put dirt from Texas or Oklahoma in your car. It's only 10 cents a quart. There's bound to be some oil in it.
Are we designed to get nutrients from food? Why are we getting nutrient deficient diseases?
Where did God put the first human being?
In the Garden of Eden?
Eden. So why did God pick the Garden of Eden? Why didn't he pick Oklahoma? Why didn't he pick Maryland? Why didn't he pick London? Okay, here's the deal. That's the ultimate question. You asked the ultimate question, and Ash, I'm very proud of you. And this is what we learned in the animal industry, because we don't have health insurance for animals. So here's what we learned. Well, I'll ask you one more question. You'll know the answer when I ask you this question. Is gold found equally all over the world?
No, it's in veins. It's in ripples spread out unevenly.
Okay, it's found in veins. What about silver?
It's found in veins. It's very hard to find these precious metals.
What about iron?
If you look at, I love it. If you're like up in a plane and you're flying across the country, you can see sometimes there's soil rich in iron and sometimes there isn't. You can see the different colors.
Okay. And so what about, let's see here. What about sulfur?
Yeah, I don't know. I think sulfur's yellow. I think that creates like a yellow tint to the earth, but it's not, I mean, there's nothing that's equally or evenly distributed.
Okay, you hit it right on the head, dear, because nutritional minerals do not occur nutritional minerals, there's not a single one of them that occurs in a uniform blanket around the crust of the earth. They all occur in veins, like chocolate and chocolate ice cream. They all occur in veins, like gold and silver. There's places where people live the longest. I don't know if you're familiar with that book and the movie Lost Horizon. The original book was written by James Hilton. He was a New York Times investigative reporter. New York Times sent him in the early 1930s, like 1930, 1931. They sent him to China. Okay, he went to the Giltar Glacier, all right, in the Hunza district of China, which is kind of halfway between mainland China and also Pakistan. And the longest lived people, and it was a debate whether they were 250 years of age or 361 years of age.
Wow.
And so New York Times saying, these guys, they got to be lying. There's no way. So they get their most vicious, aggressive investigative reporter by the name of James Hilton, and they send him there to investigate these people. And he was able to document these ages. And he wrote a report. And there was such a response to the report when New York Times published it, he wrote a novel called Lost Horizon, and he invented the term Shangri-La for this mythical place where people live forever. It was based on the true thing from the Hunza people in the Giltar Glacier. Then they made a movie out of it. It got more awards than any other movie ever. And that book, Lost Horizon, is still the best-selling book ever, when a number of copies of the book. And they made a movie. It was called the same title, Lost Horizon. And, of course, it was the movie is about an airplane crash of tourists in this place where everybody, you know, was over 200 years of age and so forth. And so they figured out it had something to do with the soil and the water and this, that, and the other and so forth. That's the whole gist of the story.
Who figured it out? Did you figure it out that it was they were getting minerals in their water from the glacier or the soil?
They figured that out in 1933.
And of course, there's been talk of blue zones. I know you wrote a book about longevity,
Mm-hmm.
that there's
Yes.
certain zones in the world, like the Hunzas, that live regularly past 100. They're active. They're working their farms. They're fishing.
They're still
walking.
working in their gardens at 150, 160, 170 years of age. There's all these newspaper releases, you know, in Europe, the United States. I have them in my book, Rare Earths and Cures. These guys in Hunza, they're 168 years old. They're out there still working in their garden, don't have any health problems at all. Okay, well documented by all the medical hospitals there in the regions and so forth. It's kind of like the gold mine of nutritional minerals in those locations. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about, for example, olive oil being the reason why those in Italy live so long. You know, there's a lot of authors out there that write books on longevity, and they've decided the Mediterranean diet causes people to live a long life. Most of these places, like the Okinawans, eat a diet that contains less animal meat, for example. And so then they're saying, well, maybe it's less animal meat. So they're trying to make correlations. But what is the commonality between all the blue zones that really makes the difference when it comes to staving off disease?
Volcanic ash.
Volcanic ash. Interesting.
All these places where people live a long time, their water sources and their fields where they grow their crops are 20 feet deep volcanic ash since the beginning of time. All of these reefs are attached to volcanic island chains. And so why did the reefs all start dying? Because we dammed up the rivers for electricity. Okay, hydroelectric. We blocked the volcanic ash from going down the rivers and feeding the algae, which the polyps that make the reefs ate. No more minerals, and that's why the reefs died. Electricity is the reason that the reefs all died, because they dammed up. We have 1 million hydroelectric plants making electricity, and all of them shut off the food supply to the reefs, and that's why the reefs died. It is not carbon dioxide from fossil fuel.
Some propose that it's all of the pesticides or the herbicides that were
because the environmentalists have an agenda, and they will say anything they have to do to get a grant. Okay, but have you ever heard of the scientific term crapola?
I have not.
Okay. Well, every place that there was a successful reef, it was always a reef was attached to a volcanic island chain.
Mm.
Japan, Hawaii, okay, Malaysia, the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, because all the water that came off that coast to feed the algae between the coast and the Great Barrier Reef were from the volcanic mountain chain right there in Queensland. So when they put up the hydroelectric plants there to make electricity in the three rivers, there's three different rivers they put the dams in, they cut off the food supply to the Great Barrier Reef, and that's why the Great Barrier Reef is dying. If they will listen to me, in 6 weeks' time, the Great Barrier Reef will be back flourishing.
So we're basically giving it a mineral deficiency because we're taking away those minerals from that area.
We've shut off the food supply to the algae which the reefs ate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the reason why the carbon dioxide is going up is because the algae were the things that required that ate the carbon dioxide, turned it into oxygen and carbon chains, turned carbon dioxide into oxygen and carbon chains. So why aren't the algae doing it now? The reason is actually those algae require 20 nutrients, 17 of which are minerals from the volcanic ash, and we shut off the food supply to those algae. They have enough nutrition to live, but they don't have any nutrition to convert the carbon dioxide to oxygen and carbon chains. That piece is missing because we cut off that food supply from the volcanic ash. And so I have a process. Okay, we're going to, in fact, we actually have patents on them now. We've been working on it, where we have augers that will auger the silt from behind the dams or around the dams, over the dams, through the dams. So they will dump that silt back in the water on the other side of the dam. We don't have to destroy their electricity. We'll just auger it on the other side of the dam. It'll go down and feed the algae in the dam, and the reefs will all come back.
That's amazing. So, I mean, that mirrors what's happening with us, with our own bodies, because you said like
Exactly.
the algae can live, but they're minerally deficient. They're missing that silt because of the dams. And so they're running only at like 50% function, which is a lot of people are
That's
walking
correct.
around minerally deficient and not fully functioning. And then they're taking
That's correct.
medication for the symptoms of mineral deficiency. And you can't take it drives me crazy when people say they have restless leg syndrome because that's a mineral deficiency.
It's
And I get
correct.
them on your minerals, and within days they're completely free of those symptoms and about 12 other symptoms they didn't even realize were mineral deficiencies. And yet their doctor had them on a ton of different drugs to mask these symptoms. The body
He
is
had three
crying.
kids. He had to pay for their tuitions for college.
Now, you helped a very famous athlete, Theo Ratliff. You helped him
Yes.
to get his career back, and
Yes.
because of that, you developed your sports drink, which I love your sports drink. It's amazing. It's full of nutrients. It's not like just that sugary water that
100,
is sold in the
100 nutrients. Actually, 100 nutrients. All other sports drinks are primarily caffeine and sugar. They're really energy
right.
drinks. You know, like Red Bull and all the other sports drinks are
Monster
just
and Gatorade.
yeah, that kind of,
There's just
Gatorade.
sugar water with coloring, and yours is actually
Yeah.
a healthy, holistic sports drink.
We have 100 nutrients in there. 100 nutrients actually, 78 minerals. So no athlete who takes our sports drink is going to die from that Keyshawn disease, that hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease.
Your story of Theo Ratliff inspires me so much. Because of you, I've got to meet Theo and his beautiful wife. They're amazing people.
Wonderful couple.
Yeah, they are. And his story, can you tell us a bit about his story and how you came, because of your supplements and your program, your protocol, you helped him to get his health back, end up being the famous Theo Ratliff that we know?
Yeah. Well, he was in his early 20s, and he had bone-to-bone arthritis in both knees. The cartilage popped off his right hip. He was playing for the Atlanta Hawks. Cartilage pops off his right hip, and he had to have it surgically tacked down again. He also had a fracture in his left arm. And so they said, look, this guy's too fragile to play ball. He's got shooting skills, but he's too fragile to play pro ball. And so they took his contract away from him. It was all in the newspaper and everything. And we had one of our distributors there in Atlanta, Georgia, contact him and said, hey, you need to let Dr. Wallach talk to you. And so we talked over the phone. He said, I'll try anything. So to make a long story short, We put him on our healthy bone and joint pack, but we also came up with our rebound, our sports drink for him with all these 100 nutrients in it. Got him on a diet, got him off all the bad foods, including gluten, wheat, bran, and oats to maximize absorption. And in 6 months' time, all his problems were gone. And he got his job back at the Atlanta Hawks. And he made $30 million from the Atlanta Hawks before he moved on and made another $100 million with the other teams.
Amazing. Amazing. I heard a rumor that other very famous basketball players were drinking your sports drink, even though they were being sponsored by Gatorade and other sports drink companies.
Yeah, that happens.
And the fans started to notice, hey, the Gatorade doesn't have a color like that. They wanted to know what these sports teams were drinking. Do you know what sports teams are now using your supplements? Do you know?
Well, there's players in all professional sports teams, all Olympic teams. There's players, maybe in some cases not the whole team is playing or drinking our sports drink, but there's just about every serious athlete, whether they're semi-pro, Olympic, university, or professional, they're using our sports drink.
Because you have such a deep understanding of where our food comes from, the farm, understanding soil, can you explain why is that soil is deplete of nutrients even more now than it has ever been?
In some places, the nutrients have never been there at all.
Right.
So they're not depleted, they just was never there. Now we have fertile ground, and usually, and of course, the most expensive land, and the land that people love to will to their kids and so forth, was floodplains, because the silt from the runoff in the mountains, the minerals would be reintroduced every spring during the floods to the land. So people who owned bottomland always had healthier cattle, healthier lambs, healthier pigs, healthier chickens, healthier kids. And they were more successful farmers because their yields were like 50% or 75% higher than those trying to grow food out in the desert. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
It was the reintroduction from the floods every year of those minerals in the silt. Now, what dammed up the rivers? Hydroelectric plants shut off the food supply to these lands that get flooded every spring.
The soil doesn't get the remineralization every year.
Yeah.
The Nile. The Nile is a great example of that.
Yeah, because I don't know how many dams there are on the Nile. So just like the reefs, when you dam up the rivers for electricity, there's 1 million hydroelectric plants in the world, actually. 1 million. There's 2 million other dams that are for water conservation and irrigation. 3 million dams damming up the water. Well, guess what? They shut off the food supply to the land. They shut off the food supply to the ocean. That's why the ocean is dying, because 3 million dams damming up the rivers, so the food supply is shut off to the ocean and the reefs and the old bottomland that used to be the richest soil on Earth.
Now, you have a product that farmers can use to remineralize their soil, and you've seen amazing results. I've seen amazing results. Even those who add the minerals to their chickens, for example, or add them to their cows.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I've heard some amazing stories. And then, of course, the farmlands, crops grow stronger, healthier, and pest resistant because of the minerals in the soil.
That is correct. And, of course, when they give our minerals, it has 78 minerals in there. The cows produce more milk for the same amount of grain they're being fed. And, of course, the chicken eggs are like 50% bigger. And the hens, when their eyes get really big when they lay those eggs.
I bet.
Woo!
I love the minerals. I put it in my vegetable garden and I see great results. But I've also met with some farmers who have used it and they've done experiments where they put it in one field but not in the other. And you can see the difference. You can see right where they stopped laying down the minerals because something about, maybe you can explain it, that the crops grow stronger, but they're pest resistant because they're stronger. Can you explain why is that?
Well, actually, not only pest resistant. Let's say you have a nice couple and they live in Missouri and they have a kid, and this kid, he's 22 years old and he's 5'6", and his thing is playing pool on Friday nights at the bar. But they moved to Colorado. They live downstream from the mountains, and their next son was 6'7" and plays basketball. One kid is 5'6", and the other kid is 6'7". Same mom and dad.
And that's not
Because
genetics.
no, that's not genetic. Okay, it's an embryo thing. The embryo got more nutrition, and also as the kid was born, as he was growing up, he got more nutrition growing up because the food there had more minerals in it than this kid that was raised in central Missouri.
Is there, can you see that there's parts of the country where people are taller because of the nutrients they had access to?
Of course. And, you have to say, okay, where are some of the tallest people in America from? Well, they're from around Denver, Colorado, in the mountains. They're from Phoenix, Arizona, down in the valleys from the mountains. And Texas are famous for tall, handsome cowboys.
Very interesting.
There's also a lot of oil and gold and silver in Texas, too.
You mean the soil's more minerally rich?
Yeah, because it's all from volcanic stuff in Texas, all the mountain ranges in Texas.
You've talked about how we can prevent and reverse disease by making sure that we have the 90 essential nutrients. The majority of that is minerals. What are the common symptoms of mineral deficiency? Like the people that are walking around right now that they have mineral deficiency and they don't even know it.
Okay. Well, I give a lecture. I'm lecturing to, say, 300, 500 people in a room. And say out of the 500 people, 20 of them will have gray hair or white hair. I know those people have varicose veins. They could have aneurysms. They have all kinds of weird stuff going on in their tendons and ligaments because the same nutritional deficiency that causes white hair causes these other diseases. You get a breakdown of the elastic fibers in veins, you get varicose veins. You get a breakdown of the elastic fibers in arteries, you get aneurysms. These things don't just happen. Well, our whole family's died of aneurysms. Well, we've got 5 generations living in the same farm. Anybody supplement? No. They'd laugh at you if you took supplements. We just eat well because we grow our own food. Well, there you go. Now, Grandma, in the old days, when she felt like she had cravings, whether it was during pregnancy or they just would have cravings, they didn't have pretzels and potato chips and chocolate bars and stuff like that 100 years ago. What did Grandma eat when she had cravings? Wood ashes out of the wood stove.
Oh, yes.
What are wood ashes? They're minerals. Little kids would eat wood ashes out of the wood stove. Little kids would go eat dirt out of the backyard. And the little ones, before they were let loose on their own in the backyard, they were in their cribs. They would chew on that rail in the crib. And so when they chewed on the crib, they called it cribbing. And when the horses were minerally deficient, they'd chew on the top rail of their stall. And because they were doing what the little kids would do, they called it cribbing, just like the little kids would do. Well, since I put those minerals in the baby formulas, they don't have to put the fiberglass shield on the crib rails anymore because kids aren't eating the rails anymore since they have our minerals in all the baby formulas.
Can you explain why type 2 diabetes is a mineral deficiency?
Sure. Because the people who have type 2 diabetes are deficient in a single mineral. Because that mineral does not occur in a uniform blank around the crust of the earth. It occurs in veins like chocolate and chocolate ice cream. It occurs in veins like gold and silver. Now, here's the deal. Well, why does one neighbor not get diabetes and the other neighbor get diabetes? Well, where are they getting their food from? One gets it from the A&P and the other one gets it from Costco. They have different sources of those nutrients. Or maybe they have a brother who has a farm 100 miles away and the brother brings them bushels of food every week. Okay, so people who are getting a source of those minerals naturally in their food don't get those diseases. But if they move away from there to another place where that mineral is not there, is not in the food in the grocery stores, their kids will get those diseases. They say, oh, yeah, my doctor says it's delayed genetics. It had to be back in our family somewhere.
When I got on your supplements, I had taken supplements before, I bought at the grocery store. I remember I bought supplements at Trader Joe's and I didn't notice the difference. So I was very reluctant, right? Because I thought, I've spent money before on supplements and it didn't work. And why is this going to be different? But there was a voice in me that said, just go for it. Just try this. I had hope in me. And at the time, I had out of control blood sugar, just raging out of control blood sugar. I was hungry all of the time. When we were driving somewhere, like going on an errand on the other side of town, I would say to my husband, pull over at the next exit and go to the first drive through. I have to eat now. It was so, I cried. I would burst into tears. I'd feel like a prisoner of my own body. I was always hungry. My blood sugar was out of control. I also had chronic fatigue. I was exhausted all the time. And I got on your trace mineral. The first thing I did was I got on your trace mineral, your liquid trace mineral, and I got on the supplement that helps stabilize blood sugar because it has the minerals in it for that. And that day, I just taken a few shots of the liquid mineral, and it was 2 p.m. and my husband turns to me and said, "You haven't eaten anything yet today." And I burst into tears because I checked in with my body and I realized I wasn't hungry because I was always waiting for hunger to eat because I was constantly hungry. After just taking a few shots of the minerals, I didn't have any hunger, and it was 2 p.m. and I couldn't believe it. I was bawling my eyes out, and I thought, there's something to this. There's something to this. And so I kept taking it. And on day 5, now I normally couldn't wake up till about 11 in the morning. I'd be so exhausted all day. I woke up on the fifth day on your liquid mineral supplements. I woke up at 5 in the morning, fully wide awake, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I jumped on top of my husband. I looked him in the eyes and he says, "I don't know who you are. You're not the woman I married, but I'm keeping you." And I knew that there was something to this. So I called we called our 2 best friends. One lives in Toronto, and you were giving a lecture that same day. It was like, I really believe it's God, divine intervention. God came to help because that exact same day I called her up and I said, "Catherine Ann, I have to tell you about something that's amazing that's happened to me this week. And you have to go see Dr. Wallach." Now, she was in her 50s at the time. She had taken supplements her whole life. She'd eaten healthy her whole life, but she was born with ichthyosis.
Now, do you know what causes ichthyosis?
Well, I do now, but back then she was told it was genetic, and she raised her hand and you said, "I bet you were told it was genetic." And she said, "Yes, because my father has it and my niece has it." And you said that the doctors were wrong. And you told her exactly what to take. Now, this is back in 2011. You told her exactly what to take. 3 years later, she has 0 ichthyosis. And now, the only remnants is sometimes she gets slightly dry skin. That's it. That's it. Now, her body was covered in these giant chunks that would just fall off her and bleed, and that was the ichthyosis. That's which means like fish scales. But you reversed it, and that was the most amazing thing because you proved right there to us that it wasn't genetic, but that her family, if her whole family had a specific nutrient deficiency, that it would express in that way. And you wrote a book called Epigenetics, sharing that like one family, if they had vitamin E deficiency, for example, would express in this way, but a different family with different genetics, the genetics would express in maybe issues with the lungs, for example. And that you've shared that the root is nutrient deficiency, not genetics, but genetics express in different ways when you have nutrient deficiency.
Okay, well, here's another piece to that. There's a bottom line here, the thing that all the family members have a gluten problem. They're eating gluten, oatmeal for breakfast, okay? And so they couldn't absorb the nutrient, even if they were supplementing with that nutrient. Okay, they're going to be slow to respond, whereas if they were to get off of gluten in 2 weeks' time, it'd be all, it'd be gone. But ichthyosis, psoriasis, eczema, dermatitis, rosacea, and asthma are all caused by the same deficiency. And so when you have a gluten problem, wheat, brown, rye, and oats, that nutrient is extremely difficult to absorb. And so that's why you see little kids with asthma, and they got skin problems, they got eczema and dermatitis and psoriasis. And they'll also have bowel problems. These same people will have bowel problems. They'll have irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, diverticulitis, appendicitis. They'll have things like colitis, ileitis. You got it? All those are the same disease. When you look at them under the microscope, they're only given different names because of different locations of major pain. And so they're named by location of pain as opposed to what it looks like under the microscope, because all those bowel diseases look the same under the microscope. They're all the same. They're the result of gluten consumption. You lose 97, 98, 99% of the absorptive surface of your small intestines. So even if you supplement with that nutrient, you're not going to get a full response, or it's going to take you 3 years to get a response. Should take you only 2 weeks to get a response.
So do you believe 100% of the world should avoid barley, wheat, rye, and oats?
Yeah, wheat, barley, rye, and oats, the whole world should avoid it, because that's why 20 million people died in India 100 years ago from the Spanish flu. That's why right now Brazil has got the worst cases of COVID-19. They had 1,000 people die last night and 26,000 new cases in Brazil last night. Okay, because they're all eating wheat.
There's a link between eating these grains and our immune health?
Of course. And you have to appreciate when you cannot absorb nutrients, say you're a 3-year-old kid and you get the COVID-19 virus, you get minor common cold symptoms. After 50, 60, 70 years of eating wheat, barley, rye, and oats, and now you're 65, 75, 85, 90, and you get the COVID, you get really severe manifestations and even death. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is over 30, 40, 50 years that people have been eating gluten, wheat, barley, rye, and oats, their intestinal lining disappeared. And even if they're supplementing, they can't absorb nutrients. And so do you know what the immune system is, Ashley? Do you know what the immune system is made out of?
White blood cells?
Well, white blood cells, right, are the product of the immune system. The immune system is your bone marrow.
Ah.
So when people, they get to be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, they have what's called Wallach's fibrous dysplasia. It used to be just called fibrous dysplasia, which doctors said was genetic. Okay, no, I'm calling it Wallach's fibrous dysplasia because it's not genetic. It's a simple nutritional deficiency caused by gluten damaging the small intestines, not able to absorb the nutrients. So the bone marrow dies, can't make white blood cells anymore to go kill and eat the virus, can't make antibodies to go kill the virus, can't make red blood cells, so these people are constantly anemic. They have to have transfusions all the time and B12 injections. And, they bleed to death because they can't make platelets. When the 20 million people in India died from the Spanish flu, they all died from hemorrhaging. They didn't die from pneumonia. They all hemorrhaged to death because all their bone marrow was dead when the virus got them, and they couldn't make platelets, and so they all bled to death. 20 million in 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
It took me a lot of redoing all those autopsies to figure it out.
That's fascinating. Are there cultures that don't eat barley, wheat, rye, and oats, and they have stronger immune systems?
Yes, they're called Asians. They eat rice and sweet potatoes. Taiwan only has 23 deaths from COVID-19.
That is fascinating. When I learned from you to remove barley, wheat, rye, and oats from our diet back in 2011, we listened to you. We did exactly what you said. Although I don't have celiac, a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have celiac. I don't need to do that." Well, I don't have celiac either, and I've taken allergy tests. I'm not allergic to it according to an allergy test. But when I removed barley, wheat, rye, and oats from my diet, I lost 25 pounds of water weight. My husband lost several as well. He went down 2 ring sizes, and I went down 1.5 ring sizes. Our rings started flying off. We had our wedding rings custom made for us, and they started flying off our hands. And we had to go get them resized back in 2011, and they are still fitting perfectly. We had to go down that many ring sizes from cutting out barley, wheat, rye, and oats. It caused that much inflammation. And we have pictures of us before and after going gluten-free, but beyond that going oat-free as well. We don't eat those 4 grains because of everything we learned from you. And you don't have to be allergic. And because some people go, "Oh, well,
not an allergy.
It's not an allergy.
Not an allergy. No. And so what I want everybody to do, if they have any wheat, barley, rye, or oats in their house, they need to package it up in a very nice package and drop it off as a present for their doctor.
You are so funny. Why does barley, wheat, rye, and oats cause damage to the gut? Why does it mechanically cause damage to the gut?
It's actually a chemical damage, okay? It's a
Oh,
chemical damage, okay, because of the chemical makeup of the proteins in those grains. Rice does not have those. Buckwheat does not have those. Millet does not have those. Okay, so those grains are all safe. It's kind of interesting, too, when you look at COVID-19 infections, women have the same infection rate up until about 25 years of age as men. After 25 years of age, women almost don't get COVID infections at all, and men go up.
is it because of beer drinking?
Yeah, men drink beer and women drink beer when they're in college, but once they get over 35 years of age, they get a little more sophisticated and they start drinking vodka, they start drinking wine, that kind of stuff, right?
That's too funny. That's true. And a lot of women are avoiding, those carbs because they're afraid of carbs.
Yeah, and for a reason. But the men, they like their beer. But if you want to drink beer, drink Asian beer, Japanese and Chinese beer made from rice.
Right. So the most important foods to avoid are the barley, wheat, rye, and oats. What other foods have you found that are very detrimental to our health?
Fried foods turn into trans fats, heterocyclamines that cause cancer, cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol is your best friend. Cholesterol does not cause plaque in the arteries or heart disease. Cholesterol is your best friend. Again, if your doctor wrote you prescriptions for cholesterol-lowering drugs, package them up and send them to your doctor. I love you so much. I don't want to take these anymore, but rather than throw them away, I'm going to give them to you. Please use them. I just am not interested in standard drugs. Alzheimer's disease is a cholesterol deficiency. Cholesterol deficiency did not occur before the 1930s and 40s. Prior to that time, there was no such thing as Alzheimer's disease. There were dementias, but there's 8 different dementias. Doctors tend to call them all Alzheimer's disease because insurance pays the most money to treat Alzheimer's disease. So they call all 8 dementias Alzheimer's disease so they get the maximum pay.
Mm.
Okay? I take people, who, let me tell you a great story. A guy's name was Ray McGregor. He's still alive and he's kicking butt. But he was I was actually in Texas, okay? I was in Texas at that time. And this Ray McGregor had been in a coma. He had, quote, Alzheimer's disease for 3 years. He goes into a coma, and he'd been in a coma for 8 years in a nursing home being fed through a G-tube.
Mm.
He's in a coma for 8 years with, quote, Alzheimer's disease. So I put him on our program, for anti-dementia, including 3 eggs twice a day with soft yolks and our de-stress capsules and ultimate niacin plus and healthy brain and heart packs and grinding everything up twice a day and putting it all through his G-tube. Now, his daughter did this for him. In 3 days' time, he gets up. He thought he was only asleep one day. He gets dressed, goes back to work at the bank. He was a vice president of the bank. Well, it's been 8 years. Nobody knew who the heck. Who are you? And they thought this guy's trying to figure out a weird way to rob the bank. And he was perfectly normal after just 3 days on my program, after being 3 years cholesterol-lowering drugs, statin drugs, and then 8 years in a coma being fed just, these liquid food replacers, getting slowly worse and worse and worse and worse. And they thought his end was coming. That's why his daughter contacted me. Is there anything we can do? I said, well, try this. In 3 days' time, she calls me screaming, he's back at work at the bank.
I love listening to your radio show because I hear these stories because people call in and you tell them what to do. And then they call in 3 months later and they tell you, this is what happened. And you're like, yeah, you followed what I said. Good. Keep doing it. But you hear these amazing stories. I believe twice I have heard of senior citizens growing back a second set of adult teeth. They'd lost their teeth. They were wearing dentures for a long time. And after getting on your supplements, they regrew in their 70s, 80s, 90s. They regrew new teeth. And that's because the body now finally had enough minerals to do that. And I just, that blows my mind what the body can accomplish. I love following you, listening, to everything you do. A few years ago when you were here in my town, a woman stood up crying and said, I'm a nurse, and a month ago I was in a wheelchair and I thought I would have to give up nursing because I have MS and I have a progressive form of MS. It doesn't come and go. It just goes. It just like I just was on my way out the door and I had to give up nursing, and then I found Dr. Wallach and I got on his protocol and I'm standing here today. And it was, 30 days ago I was in a wheelchair
Mm-hmm.
and now I'm standing here because of everything he does. And you said that MS, Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, that they're all the same disease, but just presenting in different parts of the nervous system. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, different parts of the nervous system do different things, actually. And so when you shut one of these different areas down, you get different symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so that's just a simple answer, because each of those areas do different things. And so you shut down the one that causes you to start shaking, you start shaking. You shut down a different one, you lose your memory. You shut down a different one, you get ringing in the ears. You shut down a different one, you lose all your strength, kind of thing. And so you start eating 3 eggs 3 times a day with soft yolks. You take your Healthy Brain and Heart Pack and throw in the de-stress capsules and the Ultra Niacin Plus, Synaptive, and stay away from all the bad stuff. Suddenly now, and all this stuff is in this book, it's all in your head. Okay, because there's 25 different diseases that go away when you do what I tell you to do. And I figure I might as well put all these head things in one book.
I love it. I'm so excited for your new book. Is it out yet, or when is it coming
Oh
out?
yeah, no, you can buy them today.
Okay, great.
This little book is going to change America. I'd say within 1 year's time, this little book will change America, because all these diseases that neurologists make their living off of and send their kids to college on are not going to be here anymore.
Fascinating. I'm just so excited. I love that because of you, these minerals and nutrients are now in baby formula that weren't in baby formula. Because of you, we're reducing sudden infant death syndrome, and we're reducing these nutrient deficiency caused diseases as people are waking up. Now, one thing you say is avoid oil, and this is so controversial. So many doctors believe that we should be drinking liters of virgin pressed olive oil. Why is oil bad for us?
Well, because of their chemical structure, they have what's called double bonds, which are very, very fragile connections between one carbon and another. When you leave them sit out at room temperature for a couple of weeks, like salad dressing on the tables in restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe in one of these places where you go through a line, and they have the salad dressings on there. And then you fry in oils, you baste in oils, you cook in oils, you simmer in oils, you grill in oils, and you're oxidizing those double bonds in the oil, turning them into what's called trans fats, heterocyclamines, and acrylamides, which are one of the most potent poisons on earth. They cause cancer. They cause plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol does not cause plaque in the arteries. Cholesterol does not cause heart disease. It's oils, the oxidized oils, either just that you keep your salad dressing sitting on your kitchen table all the time. Okay, it'll take a couple of months for it to oxidize, but if you heat it for frying or just sautéing, okay, whether it's fish or fried potatoes or chicken or hamburgers or whatever it is you're putting the oil in, you cause inflammation of the arteries, and that causes plaque in the arteries. It's the oil that causes heated oils or oxidized oils that cause plaque in the arteries, not cholesterol. It's just like when people were told Alzheimer's disease, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Okay, same principle.
Have you been able to reverse heart disease? People come to you with 4 clogs in the heart, for example, or they're on a heart transplant list. Have you been able to reverse heart disease?
Oh, thousands every day around the world. One of the first recognized heart diseases, congestive heart failure, was actually the terminal event of beriberi, one of those diseases that the old sailors used to die from. It's caused by the deficiency of a single vitamin. Congestive heart failure, which doctors want to give you a heart transplant for, is a simple deficiency of one vitamin. Atrial fibrillation is caused either by osteoporosis of the skull squeezing the 10th cranial nerve, or you get degenerative disc disease and the vertebrae, first 4 thoracic vertebrae, squeezing the first 4 thoracic nerves from your spinal cord that control your rate and rhythm of your heart. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then these hypertrophic cardiomyopathy heart disease is Keyshawn disease, is sudden heart death in these young athletes, and sudden infant death syndrome, all the same thing. They're caused by a deficiency of a single nutrient.
And in terms of deposits built up where doctors would
There's
say
no
it's
cholesterol
cholesterol.
in plaque in your arteries. There is no cholesterol in your arteries. That was the biggest lie that medical doctors have told the world. They should all be put in jail for that. Every cardiologist should be put in jail. There is no cholesterol in plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol has nothing to do with plaque in your arteries. Cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease. It's oils.
I love it. What book of yours could someone read if they want to understand more about this?
Epigenetics.
Great. It's so exciting to share this information because I've seen it work. Now, you recently sustained an injury that the doctors wanted to amputate your foot, or they were entertaining the idea, and you were able to save your foot. Can you tell us what
Mm-hmm.
happened?
Yeah, I was up in Canada, eh? I was in Toronto, and we had just finished a big one of these shows. Okay, it was late at night, dark, and we're going to cross this field, and there had been construction out there, and they had created a sinkhole in this field, which we had crossed hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, and it was just like a golf course, no holes, nothing like that. And so, there's 7 of us, me in the middle, and 3 beautiful women on one side, and 3 beautiful women on the other side. And we're walking because they're rolling up the asphalt in the parking lot, so you couldn't park next to the meeting place. So we had to walk across this field to get to the parking lot. And I stepped in this 8-foot deep hole, and there's rebar in there, and this 1 foot was all punctured with rebar, and it dislocated the SI joint on the right side and punctured my left foot. Well, in 3 days' time, that foot looked like hamburger, and everybody made me go to the emergency room. So I go to the emergency room, and they said, "Oh my God, we're going to cut your foot off." I said, "No, you're not." And I got dressed and got out of there. Well, my left foot, which had the gangrene in it and looked like hamburger, and rotten hamburger, and they were going to amputate it, is perfectly 100% normal. My right leg, which I had the dislocated SI joint in, is still a half ounce shorter than the left leg, but there's no pain. There's nothing wrong with it. And, I use a walker for balance, but I don't need it. I walk around the house 14 times twice a day just for exercise, and I can load and unload trucks and stand up behind a counter and deal with people all day just standing. Okay. And so, no problem. Yeah, I'll have both legs when I die at 300.
You better, absolutely. But you healed so quickly. Did you change anything with did you just
No,
continue on the supplements you always take and the diet you always eat, or did you change anything?
no. The only thing I did was I used our colloidal silver and squirted colloidal silver up the puncture wounds in that foot that I'd stepped on the rebar and had the gangrene. And so I just squirted colloidal silver up in the holes and sprayed it all over the outside of the foot. And in 10 days' time, it was all healed.
Oh my gosh. I've seen that. I've seen that before where people who are on your supplements who are fully nutrified and they go in for a surgery, they heal faster, much, much, much faster than any of the doctors expected because the body can heal itself when it has all of its resources.
Well, Ashley, doctors make their money when you have a complication from surgery.
Oh my gosh.
So why would they want to avoid complications? That's where they make their most money.
Mm. It's so disheartening and so frustrating, but that's why I do the work I do to spread this information so that we can help
Well,
people.
that's why we love you. We appreciate it.
My dear friend Jennifer, who has healed some amazing things herself using your supplements, and I have healed, like I've shared. We started a website called takeyoursupplements.com, and we help people to get on your protocols and follow your protocols to prevent and reverse disease and become incredibly healthy. Like I said, I reversed major issues. I was told I'd never have kids. I was able to conceive naturally, and we attribute it all to the work that you do. So thank you so much. A dear friend of mine, the second person I called to get on these supplements back in 2011 was my friend Forrest, who had chronic kidney stones. He was in his early 30s and he was urinating kidney stones for 5 months straight, unable to leave the house. He was in so much pain. And we got him on your protocol, and the kidney stones immediately stopped and they've never come back. and that you explained it was a mineral deficiency. And I've seen this over and over and over again, that you regularly reverse issues. Why is it that someone can't just go to the grocery store and buy some generic supplement? Why is it that your supplements are unique and that your supplements are the most bioavailable, that the body can absorb and utilize the best?
Okay, two reasons. Number one, they contain all 90 essential nutrients, actually more than that, 220 nutrients, many of which will be deemed to be essential later on. But they certainly all our programs, we have programs for 900 different diseases. They all contain 200 plus nutrients, 90 of which are universally agreed upon as essential. Now, you see these advertisements on TV for these vitamin mineral, these multiples. Some of them have been around since the Second World War. In fact, I used to take them as a kid. Okay. Mm-hmm. They say, complete nutrition. Order today, complete nutrition, 20% discount because of all the COVID stuff. 20% discount, complete nutrition. You get all 27 nutrients. Well, that's not even a third of the 90. 27 isn't even 30. The 27 nutrients, I think 14 of them are vitamins, and the others are minerals. And so they don't have anywhere near the 60 essential minerals that you need, right? They got like 7 or 6 or 12 or whatever it is. And there you go. It's just because their idea of complete nutrition is totally crazy.
Your protocol has the 90 essential nutrients, but you also formulate it in a way that the body can absorb readily.
Well, yeah. Okay, well, see, we use very unique sources of these minerals and very unique sources of the vitamins, very unique sources of the omega-3 essential fatty acids. None of our stuff is the same place any of these other companies get their nutrients from. Most of their nutrients are manufactured, they're manufactured. Like the vitamins are manufactured, okay? And so we have more natural nutrition than anybody else. But also, there are certain places on Earth where these types of minerals occur. I mean, we're talking about one deposit, and these are places where everybody lives a long time. These are places where there's volcanic histories, and so the volcanic ash is 1,000 feet deep here. And so we buy the property and we mine this stuff, and it's still in the plant farm. Repeat that, it's still in the plant farm. These minerals are in plant cells. They're organically bound as opposed to just ground up limestone. Mm-hmm. So that's why ours are so absorbable, because they're attached to an organic molecule.
Proof of the pudding's in the eating. By taking your supplements, I've worked with thousands of people since 2011, and they all notice a difference. Everyone within days has more mental clarity, better sleep, better energy, and then they start to see those symptoms go away, that the unwanted symptoms go away, and they start to see better health. And I just over and over and over again. So I definitely encourage listeners to read your books. I'm going to have all the links to all your books in the show notes of the podcast so that they can read your books. Your information is phenomenal. And I love that you go against the grain. You go against the status quo because you're showing people the truth, and you're not afraid to show people the truth. So that's why you're my biggest hero in the health space. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing. It's been amazing.
Actually, you were one of the greatest angels of God, because you're his work. I've worked with so many pastors. We actually have a wonderful DVD and a CD set called Praise the Lord and Past the 90. Just a 30-second story. This pastor, Mike Freeman, up in Baltimore, Maryland, he went into a coma when the bird flu went through 5 or 6 years ago up on the East Coast. Mm-hmm. And he was put into one of these terminal wards with 10 other people who were all supposed to be dead before morning. And Miss Linda, one of his great gals who does all his technical stuff, calls me and says, "Is there anything we can do for him?" I said, "Yeah, just take our plant minerals, not the flavor one, just the plant minerals, and put a face cloth on both his legs below his knees, and every 15 minutes soak him. Take a Bible in there, read the Bible to him. He's in a coma." In the morning, she calls me crying and says, "Well, how'd Pastor Mike do?" And she says, "Well, as predicted, 10 of the 11 were dead before morning."
Oh my
gosh. Pastor Mike got up, shaved, and he's down at his TV studio telling the world how God's minerals saved his life.
I love that. I've heard that before, that putting the minerals on the skin of people who couldn't take it orally, that
Absorb
they're
it.
able to absorb it. Oh, I love that. You know, I've had experiences where I had a like really, really bad sunburn, you know, to the point where blisters are
Hmm.
coming up.
Hmm.
And I take your minerals and I spray it on. I put it on one side of my body, not the other, just to prove like how quickly it'll heal. And the next day, the sunburn where I put the minerals on is gone and the other side's still burnt. So it just works. It really works.
Yeah. Well, I remember you sharing that with me before, and I want to thank you. Praise the Lord and pass the 90. Let's do more great things together. Love you, dear. Bye bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Wallach. It's such a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed today's interview with Dr. Joel Wallach, one of my biggest heroes in the holistic health space, and certainly my favorite naturopathic physician. Please go to takeyoursupplements.com and speak with us about what supplements are right for you. The trace minerals, their one bottle of it is about $24. It's a liquid form of 77 trace minerals and elements. So everyone can take it. It's affordable for everyone. And then, of course, to get all 90 essential nutrients that's right for you. And then, as he mentioned, like the secret sauce, depending on your symptoms and your health concerns and your health goals, there are certain packages that he's created, certain protocols and programs that he's created for everyone depending on their needs. And we'll help you with that. So go to takeyoursupplements.com, and we really look forward to helping you. I've been working with everyone there at takeyoursupplements.com. I'm so excited that you can be part of it, part of helping get your health back. Now, if you're a health coach and you're interested in learning how to help people with supplements, we can also help you there. There's a whole training program for health coaches to learn how to utilize Dr. Wallach's protocols to help their clients. So we can help you with that as well. Awesome. Thank you so much for being a listener. Thank you so much for sharing this podcast with those you love. Remember, go to takeyoursupplements.com and have yourself a fantastic rest of your day.